Well, thank you, choir. Thank you for that wonderful singing, powerful music this morning. And I thank you for that particular song that we just sang there. Nothing is impossible with God. And just really goes well with, I believe, what I'm speaking on this moment, or this morning, for a few moments anyway, for the time we have left. I think it's going to speak well. It's already been spoken through words or through song, through the lyrics, but I think we'll do also as we look at God's Word this morning. And so I want to speak this morning. As I've told you, we're in the book of Joshua on a series about living your best life. And that's not just physically living it. It's really more than that. It's spiritually living your best life with Jesus Christ. And so it doesn't matter what age you are. And so this morning I want to look at really particularly chapters 2, 3, and 4. We're going to cover quite a bit, but we've already covered some of this before. I've preached some of this message or these passages before, so I'm not going to go a lot in depth in that. But I want to draw that this morning and think about this thought here, is don't go to Jericho until you have remembered your Jordan. Don't go to Jericho until you remember your Jordan. And so as I go throughout the message, you'll understand more what I'm talking about. But briefly, you remember the children of Israel were going to Jordan. Right? They're going to Canaan land to take possession of the promised land. But if you remember, there was Jericho that stood in the way. And God already told them that they were going to have that. They were going to take possession of it. But before they could move on to Jericho, there's a place here we see they had to stop and to remember their Jordan. They had to remember their past and crossing the river. The book of Joshua is a book about conquest. It's the nation of Israel destroying every nation that was in the way. Every nation that was standing between them, between where they were once they left Egypt and the promised land. All these enemies were destroyed. And as they marched towards this. But for the book of Joshua to be a book of conquest, and it's really what it is. When you take and read it, you find out that's really what it is. It's a book of conquest of what they did here and here and here. There's very little details, though, about their military campaign. We get a few glimpses here and there of what it's about, but basically, it really skimps out on a lot of the detail. If you're a history buff, if you like that, perhaps like I do, I like to go and read history and read about the wars and things like the World War II or World War I, just a lot of these. Not that, there's anything obviously good about that, but what I find interesting is that it's good over evil. Because when we see that, we understand that's exactly what has taken place. But there was great tragedy. There was great amounts of death that took place, of destruction. But in the end, good prevailed. And in that, when you take a history book or magazine and you read it, and it tells about the battles, and it tells the tactics and the strategy, it tells about the weapons that were used, the generals, the officers, and their military mind, their thinking, of all of that, you read it and it's fascinating. But when you go to the book of Joshua and you read it, you don't find a lot of that. And you find wait, what is this? This is a book of conquest, yet it talks very little about that. And the reason why is this: the emphasis is not on a physical battle, but a spiritual one. That's what it's all about. The emphasis in Joshua is not about all those military campaigns and what they did in their own power. Because they really had not the power themselves to defeat those enemies. They did not have the weaponry to defeat their enemies. But God used them and the power that He had to prevail. So understand, when we talk about the book of Joshua, again, it's not so much the physical, but the spiritual. And it's the same way in our lives. It's not so much the physical that we have to endure, that we're going through, and the pains and the trials and the sufferings. It's the spiritual battles. And how do we handle that? How will we deal with it? Satan's always at work. He's always waiting to bring us down and to try to crush us. Maybe you have seen that. You've gone through some things in your life, and Satan is right there. He's at work. He's fighting against you. I've had that just this week in preparation for this message, and as I was getting ready and trying to get my message, and last night trying to get my computer ready to print, and it wouldn't print, and it's like it's just froze. Anybody, you've had that, right? And you know what frustration comes when that computer just freezes. Do what? Just this morning. And it happened this morning. And this morning I tried again and still nothing. So I've had to try to handwrite a few thoughts. And what I'm saying is that Satan is working on me. He's trying to do things and discourage me likewise. But I believe this is a powerful message when we see what God told Joshua, and how he speaks to our hearts. And so we understand, again, it's more physical than spiritual. I mean, more spiritual than physical. If you remember, as I shared with you last week,